welcome to Stop Now, a social experiment enterprise where we stop, listen, and share. Welcome back, everyone. I am Nate, and I am recovered from the Super Bowl week a few days ago. So I'm back, and I'm feeling better than ever. And I am joined this week by Amer. Amer, it is always good to see you. How are you today?
Hi, Nat. Good morning. I'm good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Good to see you. I feel like even though it was only a week where I was out, it feels like it's been months since we've talked. So it's good to see you again, Amer, and I'm excited for this week's episode.
Nice to see you too.
And the thing about football, and I'm going to go on a tangent here, Mayor. The thing about football is every good team needs a good coach. You need somebody making sure everybody's doing the right plays, they're in the right positions. And here at Stop Now, we're a team here at Stop Now, and our coach is the man in the mask, the man behind the scenes, the voice of the voiceless. JK is with us as always. JK, how are you, Coach?
I'm good, Nate. I'm trying to get hold of everyone, and coach is the worst place to be, I believe.
But we're glad you're here with us as always, JK, because we've got a lot to talk about. We've got a lot of issues that we've been dealing with, this year and for the last couple of years here at Stop Now, particularly human trafficking and, fighting for the rights of these folks that have been victimized by human trafficking. February is Black History Month, so that's something else we've talked about from time to time here at Stop Now is the effect of racism, in the world, and people that have been slaved, whether it's modern slavery or slavery in historical sense, and also I feel like this is also a time where people are kind of two months into the new year and things are kind of getting into a routine in 2023. So I just wanted to kind of check in and see where everybody's at. So we've got a couple different things we could talk about this week if we want to. Amer, did you have any particular topic you wanted to bring up this week?
Yeah, we can discuss about human trafficking because it's a common issue all over the world, and we are
Mm,
discussing. We are continuing the issue and we are fighting against it. So our organization is definitely also working on it. So as I know, many organization is working to stop human trafficking or slavery.
Before we jump into it, right? Again, Nate, your head is cutting off. Can we take a retake? You have to sit back, I believe. Point you noticed, I liked it, right? So we have been discussing about human trafficking quite some time, like celebrated that, not celebrated, I mean, talked about it in the January month being a National Human Trafficking Month.
hmm
So Stop Now mission is to talk about the racism as you mentioned it, right? So it just sparked in my mind as well, even in YouTube, like, and even Netflix, everywhere, like Black History Month is being quoted, right? So
Yep.
even Walter joined in our team and he started doing the experiment. So it
Okay.
off and on and off. That is what, and we really had, like, as a team, we really had like real fun. So that's why, like, he comes from the journalist background, right? So we all know that.
hmm
So I wanted you and him to do the show on the Black History Month and talk about the uh, Black people issues and how racism and modern slavery uh,
Okay.
evolved in America, or what do you guys feel? Because we can relate ourselves as brown, but we don't feel that discrimination here, or
hmm
we have our own problem. So
Yeah.
maybe
It's a different kind of discrimination.
yes, Iftikhar has also volunteered and he has joined. He's in a nice suit. So let's welcome him and ask him to share his opinion as well.
Hi, Ned. How are you doing?
Good, good, good to see you.
Great. All right. My point of view is that if black versus white, you're talking about the blood that is running in white people and black people are same. So, for example, if a white people is in need of blood and nobody is there to help him. And if a black people is available there, and he's in need of blood, so the white people will be accepting the blood of the black people. Just because of the skin, why should make it different? The heart of the white people and black people are same. It's not going to difference. There's no difference. I don't find it. I may be black or I may be white. I don't mind it. What is my point of view is we are a human being. So we should be on the same page, on the same platform. There should not be any difference. If people, my point of view is that people, the mind of people or heart of people is not actually bad. It is a kind of political movement. They are making use of it. The difference is being created by the political face. That is my point of view. Otherwise, the same blood which is running on white and black, both are same. Heart, they are same. The difference has been created by a political impact.
Yeah, I think, you know, I agree with you, Ithakar. Like there's one race, there's the human race. But I feel like in America specifically, it's very political because there is something to be gained by political parties or corporations if they can keep people divided. If we can put people against each other, if I can make you look at that person and say there's something wrong with them, I'm better than them, that's how they keep, you know, that's how they keep power. That's how they get money. And so I feel like the issue in America, it's so complex because it's been around since America got started, you know, since the first slaves were brought over from Africa. And I don't know what it's going to take to get people to stop viewing themselves as other than, you know, to stop segregating themselves, to stop fighting amongst each other. But I feel like if we didn't learn in the pandemic that we're all in this together, if we didn't learn that through the pandemic, I don't know if we're ever going to learn it because there's still this conflict in America right now.
At the end of the time, who is getting benefited of it? Only the political party, no one else.
Yeah.
Least white people is getting benefited or black people is getting benefited. You know, they will be at the same place where they are.
And it's I will say, you know, not to get too political, JK, but I would say there is one party in America that tends to benefit from this racial tension, and there's so much misinformation, I think, that is being fed to people, particularly white people. And, you know, right now, we're seeing states in Florida, we're seeing places in Texas, you know, in your neck of the woods, JK, we're seeing places all over America where Black history is not being taught in schools, where they're taking books off the shelves about Martin Luther King or Jackie Robinson or Rosa Parks because they don't want kids to learn about American history and they don't want kids to learn about Black history because if the kids coming up and you know, younger kids, if they're reading about history and they're reading and seeing these stories, then you see, like Ithakar said, we're all the same. We all go through the same struggles. But if I can keep that history closed off, if I can keep you from learning about what's going on in this country, then it's easier to tell you what to think. It's easier to tell you what to do. It's easier to tell you to vote for me or to send me money. And so I think there's a particular effort right now in politics to not teach Black history, to not teach about other cultures. And it's a way to control people.
Again, you touched upon the right thing, Nate, right? So for Iftikhar and Amar, it's a different story altogether, right? For even for our Indians who come here, like because of their mindset, their cultural identity and the discrimination they face are different. And if you notice it, like the large population that came in are from, because we know that like India is known for notorious caste system, right, for thousands of years. And the superior race came in here, and not just like how you expect, like black people brought as slaves from Africa, not downtrodden or lower caste people came to US. So that's where like they don't say that story. Predominantly, if you even survey and take that, the white upper class, like I don't want to name the caste, but still, if they, for the sake of being honest here, right? Brahmins, they still create so much trouble. Being a smaller minority, they control the larger population and larger democracy in India. So what is even exactly happening there? And if you notice it, like even religious tensions or conversions, like to whether it's Islam or Christianity, happen because lower caste people were treated as like untouchables. It's worse than like the black people's slavery. And I cannot talk for black people, right? Because I don't have that lived experience. And you can say that, as you rightly pointed it out, the dumbest white Americans now trying to even stop from learning the history, right? If you stop people from learning the past, you are going to commit that again in the future.
Yep.
That is exactly what the exploitation is. Like why we are talking about modern slavery and racism is, it is all tied together, right? So just by denying, right, we are going towards the future with AI. AI tool is going to know everything and it is going to spill out everything. Just because you are going to take out like some books from the shelf and asking them not to read those things, are they going to be that dumb growing up and be dumbest ever without the knowledge? And black people are going to fight it out, right? That is what happened with the Civil War and why the rights came in. And the discrimination is clear, right? The privileges of whites are very clear just by the simple definition, right? When you are driving in the road on the car, if a cop stops, if you are a black, you get different treatment. If you are a white, you have that white privilege. We all can see that. No denying on that. Nobody can say a different story on that. And it is being repeated over and over. And that's where like other parts of the world, they are struggling to understand. And they are completely denying, oh, it is opportunities. We are giving you opportunities and giving you jobs. And there was no slavery at all. Why do you see that as a slavery? And Indian context, right? I'll tell you that with the Indian context, though I have a limited experience, correct me if I'm wrong, Iftikhar, and I don't know about Bangladesh as such, but I can relate, like Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, everything like falls under the same umbrella. And you guys have century of this discrimination, right? So with untouchables, not allowed in the place of worship, and they are being treated separately, and they cannot have rights. Basically, that is what I was told. So how can they find this black and white discrimination? It's not, everything is not black and white as such, right?
No, if you talk about the religious points, at the end of the time, I will say, who is getting benefited of it? Who is creating this difference? People are not creating this difference. Neither you can create nor me. I can create.
Iftikhar, I have to stop here. People are creating this. People are creating. You are right. You asked this question, right? So people who are in, not just politicians, are people who want to be in power, right? Every other religion itself, if you take it, right? So why I don't believe in God and why I don't follow religion is, every religion creates a discrimination, right? Because the minute you are religious, you say like, I am right, the other person is wrong. My way of worshiping and my way of truth is different from others. What do you have to say, right? You have been brainwashed from your childhood, man. So come on, like you cannot deny that. Like we are, as human, each individual are discriminatory. Okay, let's welcome Walter. It will be more interesting.
You're right on
The
time, Walter.
religion is at your home, and you, I mean, neither I can hate you if I belongs to a Muslim, if you belongs to a Hindu, if you belongs to a Christian. I cannot hate Christian, Hindu, because I'm a human being.
Mhm.
Religion is my inside my home. Outside of my home, I'm a human being.
No. I need to stop you. It is not inside our home, right? Every other place of worship is a common place, right? It has been like a public place, whether it's a mosque, it's a church or a temple, right? Everybody is allowed to go there and do the worship, right? I don't want to get into specifics of Hindu religion alone, where some lower caste people are not allowed to enter the temple. That's a whole lot of a different story, right? We need a bigger discussion and panel where people who have Hindu belief system, faith in that, who want to defend that, like they can argue about it. But you and me cannot, right? So we know that it's a place of worship, it's a public place, right? Nobody can claim that like it's a private, it's not. Iftikhar, let me be very honest with you, right? If you are going to worship at your home, believe whatever nonsense you want to, I don't care. I'm sorry to say this, right? But I don't care.
Yeah.
But when you form a group and become a mob, a crowd, and say that like this is the right faith, and everybody has to come to that faith, and everybody has to follow the same set of rules, that is where the progress doesn't happen. The control goes to a group of people like mullahs or whatever you can call. Like, I'm not targeting your religion as such. It happens in every other religion, right? Am I right or wrong?
No, go ahead. That's
No,
your
it's
point of
still,
view.
yeah, it's
No,
still it is
I'm
going.
putting
Yeah,
the
I
facts,
mean,
right? It's not my point of view. I don't have any point of view, right? Mine is like I'm just stating the facts. I'm nobody here. I'm just
I'm
stating the facts from the history.
uh,
From the history book. I'm stating the facts from the history book. Okay, let's welcome Walter. Walter, you arrived late, but Nate suggested the topic, like, since we don't have the victim yet to share her story, and we have to take a consent to see like if we can do the recording and all. So we jumped right away like to discuss the topic of Black History Month. So I thought like you and Nate will be the right person to tell us like more information about it, stories, or your thoughts.
Well, I believe this is coming right off the top of my head. I don't know exactly when the quote was made. I think it was in the past couple of years, right before COVID. I think Morgan Freeman said, "Why reduce everything down to a month for an entire group of people in the United States?" Which I think is an interesting point to say. Well, because I think everyone would agree that in the United States, there's still, well, everyone that's been to the United States on the panel or lives here would agree that there's issues involving different ethnicities and cultures and races in the United States that are, there's still a lot of racism and bigotry, especially in the area I live and grew up in the Bible Belt South. So I think that's an interesting point to make. I definitely understand as to why it was created, because everything was being ignored, and to try to focus on, well, we can't keep treating people like this. But I do definitely understand, because I grew up with this is a related story. I grew up with an individual who his family came from India, and his family has a Sikh background, and we were growing up during 9/11, and he and his brother got a lot of I won't go into certain things that were said, but he and his brother got a lot of crap because people would say, "You're a Muslim." It's like, we're not even Muslim. Like, I don't, but it's pretty bad. And growing up around them, the older brother was one of my closest friends in middle school and high school, and seeing stuff like that, it's, I wish there was a way obviously couldn't have every single month being a different culture, because then that would be a little overboard. So it's like I see the need for a lot of things. I don't think one month distinction is helping that. I don't do I have an idea right now to help that? No. It just comes about and speaking to each other and understand that we're all, at the end of the day, when you really break it down, we're human beings, and that's kind of the most important thing. And why would you want to treat another human being as if they're not? But and Nate, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying there, Walter, in terms of in theory, right? We shouldn't just need like to put these months out, right? We shouldn't just need to put these days out. But we were talking a little bit earlier before you joined the show. I feel like we probably need Black History Month now more than ever, just because of what a lot of these folks are doing in terms of taking books out of the schools, or we're trying to erase history. And J.K. made the point earlier, like there's so much of the civil rights struggle. There's so much of just Black people navigating through America, and there's a group of people I feel that want to take us back. And if we don't like I feel like you and we don't need Black History Month, you know what I mean? But I feel like maybe little white kids and little brown kids and little Black kids need Black History Month because their parents and their grandparents are trying to eliminate the importance of Black people in this country.
With the internet, because of my work, I've worked with people from all different generations. With the internet, I've seen, especially with what do you call them, Generation Z, or is that what they're called?
Yes, the Zoomers.
Well, Generation Z, they from all backgrounds, they're even with less, there's like maybe 3, 4 to 8 years age difference between me and them. Even I see more even less understanding. It's like, why would I treat this person I grew up with differently because of the melanin level? People don't do that. I actually don't really refer to people as colors. I don't really like it that much. That's a different story. But so they don't even really understand the concept completely. And I have a really good friend who, she grew up in a very racist family, and it's why she doesn't get along with basically any of them, because they're like, why would I think that way? That is stupid. So I think that's a thing that's changed a lot. I think the internet actually helps. People always say the internet, it's a horrible thing, but you go on the internet and people are you see people for who they really are, and not, well, literally most of the time, not even what they look like until you're specifically looking at a display picture. So I think it's important to understand what has happened, but I think modern society now, it's in younger people, it's becoming less of a why would I hate you for this thing that, for one, you don't control, and two, what difference does it make? Boy, your hair might be a little different, and that's really what it comes down to. I mean, you might not need to tan. I mean, like, what difference does it honestly make? So, yeah, I mean, I think all education is important as far as what got America to its point now, because it's a very young country. We can trace Chinese history back thousands of years. We can trace American history back 200 and something years. And it's important because to understand that, because how did we get our railroad systems here? That was basically Chinese labor, and we basically, people in charge basically kicked them out and basically like, yep, thank you for that. Goodbye. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't really understand the history of Japanese internment camps, why that happened, how bad that was. A lot of people don't understand. Well, a lot of people now do understand the issue, what Muslim people have been going through, because that's it's recent in the public eye because of 9/11.
Right.
But there's a lot of things that I think we need to tell people about in this country, but to understand, and how that relates to Black history,
how the Native Americans were treated. Like this,
right.
America's got a list of priors.
Yeah, that's actually a really big one. I'm glad you brought that up, because my family is really multi-ethnic, and my mom is part Native American. I went to Standing Rock in person, and that's the one that is a shame, because you don't hear anything. And I think the reason that is because there's not a big Native American lobby spending money in Congress. And it's really a shame because
Walter, not to interfere you, right? I'm just trying to spin around and have this conversation global, right? In terms of Iftikhar's understanding here.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
because he is like a hardcore Muslim, right? If I'm not wrong, Iftikhar, there is nothing wrong, right?
I've grown up in a culture wherein I had a lot of friends, Christian, Hindu. So it's nothing like that. Not, I am Muslim in my home. When I go to mosque, I pray Salah. That's it. Out of that, I have a lot of friends in Christian and Hindu. And you won't believe I have more than Hindu friends or more than the Muslim friends.
No,
so it's nothing like
yes.
with each other.
Yeah. I mean, hardcore in the sense like people who worship, right? So you worship. That's why, like I said that, and even for Nate, I used to say that, like he's even he says like I'm spiritual, like he is a hardcore Christian, right? No matter on that. So to Walter's point, right? So as he disclosed this, like he comes from the multi-cultural and ethnic background. His mom being like, why do you even go back that much of Native Americans history where, yes, we all know that. Are we going to repeat that over and over, right? So simple example I'm trying to give to Iftikhar, like 20 years before, like when the Indian Prime Minister now, who was the Chief Minister of Gujarat, he was quite on the carnage of the Muslims there, like thousands of people have killed. We all know that that was an Indian national story, ran for a few months, few years even, but he politically lifted himself in power and became a prime minister. And he was even banned from entering US.
Right, yeah.
Was denied visa, and UK, everywhere, like there was huge protest from the Muslim countries. But now, because of the diplomatic thing, right, he has the head of the state, like he has to be allowed, and just to target him, 20 years after now BBC releases a documentary, it becomes a huge controversy, right? And even the opposition or Islamic countries are being quiet. Are you, Iftikhar, like the question is, are you going to say like, oh, it happened 20 years before, let's forget about it and move on. Let's not talk about it. Let's not address it at all. So that is how, like everybody, like in everywhere, okay, so what? It happened to Native Americans and Black people. So now they all have the rights. So why do you keep bringing that up? What is the point in it?
Yeah, as I know, discrimination is everywhere. It's black and white. It's a Hindu Muslim, or it's a religious issue always coming. And as I know that George Floyd was murdered in your area, in your country. So what happened? And
oh, George Floyd was that's Minnesota's nowhere near me. Like that's probably a good, I would say, 8 to 9 hour drive away. So it's not close. But that happened during a time where during lockdown stages here. So there was really nothing else but COVID on Twitter. And when that happened, that was kind of the one news item that you would see that was not COVID. So that kind of refocused like a lot of people to worry about that. And when you look at because that used to be a thing I looked at deeply. When you look at the numbers of police violence, they've gone down, especially from the 70s. The big difference here is we now see what it looks like. Even back in the early 90s, Nate can probably talk about this. There was no video of Rodney King, right? Or was there a video of that? Oh, well, I don't believe there was video of what happened to Rodney King, and now due to a lot of
so Rodney King, we did get the that's why Rodney King hit so hard.
Okay.
Because that was like, I think, and I'm 40, so there might have been something that happened before, my time, but Rodney King was like the first time I remember seeing a video of police brutality, because it
So there was video of that. So the big thing about the incidents now is that you can see the complete disregard for their training in human life, because I honestly didn't watch the George Floyd video all the way through. I kind of got to, I think it's about 9 minutes and 30 something seconds long. I got about 4 minutes of the way through, and it's like, yeah, I know where this is going. That's kind of enough. I've watched a couple of those things. It's like, yeah, I don't need to see this. There was a famous one where police officer shot an unarmed guy in a hotel with a semi-automatic rifle, and he was following his instructions. And I watched that all the way through. I think that was in Salt Lake City, Utah, a couple years ago. And
Rodney King was like the first one I remember seeing the video evidence, and George Floyd brought back a lot of those kind of memories when the George Floyd incident happened. And I feel like something that it always kind of strikes me, Walter, is why people need to be convinced. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like people outside the group. Like if I'm telling you somebody is hurting me, like how many times do I have to tell you before you believe me? And it feels like the only way people believed us was through video evidence. And so, but I'm hopeful, Walter, but I'm also very cynical because I remember all the corporations putting up their quotes about Black Lives Matter and changing their banners. Did that really change anything? I don't think so. In fact, I know it didn't change anything.
Yeah, I think one of the big things was because that was when that was in the middle of a presidential election, and the current president, probably shouldn't get too deep in this, but the current president said he was going to do things about looking into police spending and reallocate that. And as soon as he was elected and some of the pressure was off, he actually just increased spending. And a lot of the same people who were talking about we need change aren't talking about that anymore because it was at face value. And I can go deep in that. That is my background. I could go deep in that for an hour. And that much gives me a lot of anguish about that, because there is a thing that needs to be changed when it comes to the way police are trained. I know a couple of police officers, and I've said this before on a Stop Now a podcast. I don't think all police officers are awful. I think there's an issue with people in policing that we need to fix that, because things like that shouldn't happen. It's from police of all backgrounds. Because George Floyd, I think there was a police officer from 3 different ethnic backgrounds that eventually got convicted of something related to that. And it's just a disregard.
The young man that was recently killed, like most of those officers were Black.
Yeah. So it's an issue of respecting life. And when officers say they are afraid of their lives, and you look at how many guns in the United States, I give that some onus. Yeah, there's more guns in this country than anywhere else in the world. Probably more guns in this country than anywhere, probably most countries combined. Then I think there's over 300 million guns in the United States that we know of. So I understand that to an extent, but still there's training that you need to follow. A friend of mine just went through that. It's like, you've got to follow these instances. If someone is unarmed and you're not seeing a weapon, why are you shooting through 38.95 times? Like, why are you reloading and shooting? Like there's an issue when it comes to things like that. And in too many cases, this is why one of the good solutions I've heard is independent tribunals that don't relate to the DA in these instances, because the DA works with the police, and some of these instances, like the DA is like not trying to get police officers in trouble, because that's going to lose trust between the DA and that police force, and that needs to be removed. It shouldn't be a problem for the DA, but that needs to be removed so we can actually get to the bottom of these issues, and not just be like, oh well, they didn't have a choice, or they were scared, and then they shot someone. It's like, if a civilian gets scared and shoots someone, how many years in prison is that? I mean, like, so it's like, and
the other thing I think, Walter, real quick, is, and this is when we spoke with Kevin, who is a former detective, I think, and like we definitely, and I'm putting JK on the spot here. We definitely need to book Kevin for another episode where Walter can hopefully join us, because I think that'd be a great conversation. But one of the things Kevin always says is, it's not just about training the officers for police work, but it's also about realizing that police can't do everything. They're not social workers. They're not mental health therapists. There needs to be additional resources and it not just more guns, not just more
Mm,
cars. Like we
yeah.
need people that can actually help folks that are in trouble.
Mm, I agree with that so much. That's my big solution because um I used to not say this out loud, but when the call for let's just disband police, we don't need them, abolish the police, I'm like, that to me
Mhm.
is ignorant. Because it's like that doesn't happen anywhere.
That's not the solution.
It's not going to happen. It doesn't have
Yeah.
there's nowhere else in the world where other countries don't have police killing people anywhere near the rate that we do. You can look
Mhm.
at guns for that. We have to fix policing and make it well, because even in a lot of the instances where people say abolish the police, it comes down to community led organizations that patrol the streets. Like, oh, so you mean police? Cool. You just want to abolish police and bring back police in a different name. I mean, that is completely pointless. So yeah, I do think, because why do we have armed individuals responding to a wellness check? Yes, people could have a gun, but if it's a legal gun, they have it. Like, that has to be registered. So that's, and they're not trained for that. So you're sending someone who's might be in New York City where they might have gotten shot at in the past 3-4 months, and you're sending them to an issue where someone might be having a mental breakdown. I mean, that's a horrendous idea. So maybe police can be there, but maybe there's social workers that are a part of the department that go with them on
Mhm.
this, and they take the lead. And if there's an incident of danger, the police steps in and is like, okay, they tell the police, this is a problem, I need your help. Because that would stop. I do believe that would stop shootings of unarmed individuals,
Mhm.
no matter what their background is. Like, because that's the biggest thing, I think. And I also think when it comes down to incidents of policing certain areas where you might not didn't grow up in, or the people might have different
Mm.
skin colors than you, there needs to be more forms of I don't know the exact word to call it. I don't want to call it like cultural sensitivity, cultural understanding, just a background of this area, who they are, what they might be what they might be upset about, why they might not trust the police, and how you can go about ways of fixing that. So I think that's a big thing to look at in stopping these incidents of police brutality in certain areas.
Yeah, and real quick, because I had to, and I feel bad because I had to look up the young man's name and I couldn't think of the young man from Memphis, and I just Googled, police kill young black man, and there's
Oh
a
well,
list.
yeah.
But the young man was Tyree Nichols,
Mm.
and if you watch that video, the first thing he says is, "What's going on?" And then the police's first instinct is aggression. And like you're saying, if there's somebody that can diffuse like the situation, because it's human nature to be kind of nervous when the police show up.
Oh
Like that's a
yeah.
that's a legitimate human response. So why then, as a police officer, is your response to escalate that tension? And so, yeah, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of sons, there's a lot of daughters, there's a lot of wives, husbands, mothers that could still be here had we had that extra layer in terms of we need to communicate versus our first instinct is to reach for the gun.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a big thing, because y- all- I don't. I mean, we're talking about high level changes, but I think there should be town halls with police in the community, so
Mhm.
people can talk to one another as humans, and everyone can say, this is an issue, this is what we think an issue is, and have a back and forth with the community and police, because at the end of the day, police are supposed to be servants for the community, and there shouldn't be
Mhm.
this wall of we can't talk to each other, because if you can't talk to each other, then there's not going to be trust at any level. Because at the end of the day, you don't want someone afraid to call the police because they're afraid of getting shot, because that
Mhm.
means someone who is a criminal that's doing something they shouldn't is going to get away, and they're going to take advantage of that. So there's a lot of things that need to be done. Um, I mean, I don't have all
Okay,
the answers right now,
Walter,
but
let me jump in here, right? I have some interesting things to ask and share. So human to human, right? So whether they are police, as you all mentioned this, right? So they are also humans, right? So
Mhm.
they have
Mhm.
their own problems and emotions. And as you mentioned that it's not all the police, right? We are blaming it, right? So, some of them like are good cops, right? So they just know how to protect. So we say that like they are law enforcement, right? So for their first duty is like the training itself is like to not just protect the people, right? They don't approach somebody as a victim, right? So they just go and see like whether something is wrong is happening and I have to defend myself, because they have that fear that they might get killed. So that is always on their mind, right? So I might be wrong here, but still I have not personally hold any gun. I don't have any training and I don't need that. But if you have a gun in your hand, it's a power.
Yes.
With power, like you get more responsibility. We all know that, right? But how responsible those each individual makes this chapter, right? In spite of all the training you give, but in the spark of moment, like what they decide to do, whether to use the gun or their brain to diffuse the situation or handle it, they just go with the guts of taking the gun and shooting people. So how do you think that like that can be stopped by any kind of training? Because this is even happening in every other industry, in every other sector. We talk about a lot of abuse is going on.
I have spoken to people in the military and they talk about the importance of de-escalation training especially when they're going overseas, specifically to Iraq and Afghanistan. They go through a lot of de-escalation training as far as learning about the locals in the community they're going to be in, and when something is not in an aggressive manner. So they're, and a lot of the times they're not even hearing the same language, and they're taught to not open fire at every instance. And it seems to be, I mean, it's a different country and it's a different area, but it seems to be less incidents of direct accidental shootings, we'll put it that way, when overseas in those scenarios. So I think that, I mean, I don't know every single precinct's direct training, but
I don't agree to that, right? So that's a whole different ball game, right? So even I will bring that like Prince Charles story, right? After 20 years going to Afghan and killing people, it's a war. And then like coming back and saying that like, oh, I did this and I killed these many people and I'm proud of it. And you don't even know whether they are innocent or not. And you are justifying your act, making millions by writing a book about it. So this is what like the white privilege is, right? So everybody has their own interpretation, saying that like, oh, I did for my country. So you have no right, just because your country tells you, right, your commanding officer tells you to go to a different country and wage a war and kill people over there, and say that like, oh, and coming back and say like, I have PTSD and all those nonsense. But just look at us like as a collective humans, what are we doing? You are killing other humans and saying that like that is justified because I have a fear and they are going to come and attack. Nobody came and attacked you. You are just creating a hotspot in all over the world, like to exploit and control them and kill people. That's what is happening here. And we are spinning it around and saying it a different story, saying that like I have PTSD. Of course, you have to have much worse than those things. You are the one who has to be blamed, right? Who gave you the right to go to Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan and kill those people for 20 years?
Well, that's a very deep, detailed conversation that again that would take hours to disassemble all those aspects of it. But I was just saying about de-escalation training in incidents where you're patrolling a area. I mean, that as somewhat relatable to what police are supposed to be doing, and there has to be a way for the first like Nate said, the first reaction to not pull your gun out, and when your adrenaline picks up just a little bit, that shouldn't be the first reaction all the time.
That's what, right? My struggle to understand these things is like, because I never held a gun. I don't know how I will react like if I have a gun, right? If I'm going to have a dispute or a fight with somebody else when I am having a gun, am I not going to use it or not? I don't know, honestly. I don't know who I am in that case. So we cannot take the gun out of the police, right? That will be a danger. for them, right? Nobody will volunteer then like to join the force and do the job. And we are selling guns in the open market. Everybody is allowed to have it. Then how do we solve it, right? It's not a problem to be solved. It looks like it is something like we wanted, we created. I think
Well,
Nate completely froze. Probably it's time for us to wrap up.
There's way too much, I think, to unpack to just fit it in the space of one episode, but I think we did have a good discussion today.
Yeah, I agree.
And I want to thank Amar and Ithakar for joining us today. Ithakar looked very, very, very dashing in the threads he was wearing today. So we appreciate Ithakar for making time as always. And JK, we want to thank you as always for being our head coach here at Stop Now.
Well, I'm offloading my responsibility to Walter, and he will be the one going forward, like to take the responsibility to bring in the guest and talk to them and reach out to them, all that, right? As you mentioned, like Kevin, I wanted to stop you right there and announce that. And Walter is leading the effort, and quite interesting. As you mentioned, we can share our thoughts in the later time with experiment and with his experience on what is happening with our team.
Okay.
Iftikhar and Amar is getting along in that. Iftikhar, Amar, any final thoughts before we wrap up this week episode?
No, it's an iteration one. That's it.
Yeah, I can say just one word, that we should change our mentality, then everything will be changed.
Amar said it. It's so easy and simple. Change your mind.
Yes, yes. But we thank everybody for joining us this week. We thank everybody for watching this week. If you want to get involved in the conversation, if you want to get involved with what we're doing at Stop Now, head to stop-now.org. Yes, this is a great conversation. I'm sure it will not be the last. And in the words of Ithakar, we're all one people. So be nice to somebody this week. For JK, for Amar, for Ithakar, and for Walter, I am Nate. Bye for now.